Hi there, I'm Nale, and this is my Ascension 10 Necrobinder world record. We're starting off with File Holster. This isn't my favorite option, but it's not bad either. A couple potions can speed up early floors, though these aren't the best potions. And having an extra slot makes it easier to hold on to a key potion for a tough fight, while still getting value out of the other potions that are being dropped. This first fight, we get through pretty fast, and then we get a high five. This is AoE vulnerable. It's a really great card for speedruns. And I transform into Defile, which is a decent Act 1 card, but much more importantly, Eradicate. This is an X-cost attack. If you're familiar with Whirlwind speedruns on the Ironclad or Volley on any character, this is much the same. But it has the Retain keyword, which is extremely powerful. This means that it can line up every time with all of the elements that you want it to. It also just has a bigger number on it, which is pretty sweet. Here we're speeding through some combats, and then we get Borrowed Time. This is probably the biggest enabler of Eradicate for this character. You can gain 6 energy, and then spend it all on Eradicate. So that can hit for 14 times 7. And I believe that adds up to 112, which is insane to think that we can do 112 damage on turn 1 if we draw correctly, on floor 9. Here, just checking the correct path, and we're moving on. Relic is not going to be too useful, but we get our Borrowed Time upgrade. Potions, I'm trying to figure out how to preserve HP here. This is a good time to talk about the shortcomings of this Eradicate strategy, because, believe it or not, they are there despite how much damage we can do if everything goes perfectly. If I draw Borrowed Time before Eradicate, for instance, then I will have to wait until the second deck cycle to line them up. Here in this fight, we're also seeing that the combo does not work well in AoE fights. I can one-shot anything, but having to play Eradicate 3 separate times is really, really slow. However, we get a Deathbringer from the skill potion, which saves about, 5 years. And then we get Dredge. Dredge is kind of weird. My thought process is basically that if I draw Borrowed Time before Eradicate, then I can grab it back with the Dredge to line it up a couple turns faster. I do wish that I upgraded Dredge here. In hindsight, I had no reason to rest. This fight is completely fine. At least with this draw order. Maybe there was a worse one where I would have taken a lot more damage and been at risk of dying. But we get out of here extremely quickly with a very powerful build, and this is the biggest mistake of the run. I skip the Transfigure for some reason. Maybe I just didn't process that it was there. Transfigure is another ridiculous Eradicate enabler, because while it doesn't increase the cost of X-cost cards by 1, it does still give them replay. So instead of hitting for 112, I can hit for 224 or over 300 with Vulnerable. This means that if I had Transfigure, I would already be strong enough to nearly one-shot the Knowledge Demon. Now, I don't line that up on turn 1, but it is giving me some incredible top end. And because Eradicate retains, you are guaranteed to line them up eventually if you need to. Here, I don't want to add another card to my deck in the form of that curse, so we just take the gold, but we are taking damage. This act I play pretty slowly, but we're going to see that that is for a good reason, actually. As much as I would like to say that it was a misplay that just cost me a bunch of time for no reason, this run would not have been completed if I played it too quickly. Here I thought about Snap and Invoke. Those are useful sometimes for Necrobinder speedruns. There's a lot of different strategies you can do, especially with Osti attacks. Rattle and Squeeze are really strong cards, but this deck has Eradicate, so we're not too concerned about that. Here we're going to take some more damage. Our HP bar is getting pretty low, and we have to be very concerned about maintaining that throughout the act. The build is strong enough to kill anything, but it's not strong enough to kill anything without taking damage. Our remove is going to help us line things up better, and a Horn Cleat is going to give us some more survivability as we try to make it to the boss. Mule Ticket is not going to help this act, but maybe it'll do something later. This turn I could have actually killed by dredging the Borrowed Time to get 2 more energy. But it's fine. We lose maybe 4 seconds, if that. Losing Defile is perfectly fine. That was just an early game card. You might think that Ethereal is making it a lot better than a Strike or Defend. But the fact is that we want to be killing on our first deck cycle anyway. So most of the time, Defile exhausting isn't actually accomplishing anything. Here, I forgot that I have Horn Cleat. That was pretty bad because I wasted my energy blocking instead of doing damage. This fight, I play pretty slow. Once again, for a good reason. And we can kill that guy and then block in. This is another example of AoE fights being really, really slow. I can just one-shot anything, but if I have to kill 3 things, even with the power of high 5, it's going to take a while. This fight, we have another AoE thing going on, but we have a really strong draw order, which is going to let us kill on turn 3, I believe. Borrow Time and Eradicate lining up again. Not that we needed Borrow Time that time. Bury is kind of weird. It does help with AoE fights, because the problem with Eradicate is that I have to sink all of my energy into it. Now I can split it up between Bury and Eradicate and kill 2 things at once. It's also going to have a couple other applications this run, but that's the core idea behind it. And it also is very playable with having both Dredge and Borrowed Time to line them up correctly. So I do think that was a good add. Kind of a weird edge case with Eradicate in the deck already, though. It works out. Here we're at 42 health. You might think that that's going to be enough to get through the boss, but I'm going to be resting, and for good reason. Now, if I had Transfigure, this thing would be going a lot more smoothly. However, as is, this thing's 399 HP health bar is a lot to get through, and we don't have any way of blocking it, so I just have to really face tank. I throw my weak potion right away. That's going to be critical, and I get my vulnerable up. Finally, on turn 3, we line up the combo. And luckily, nothing is getting shuffled out either, so we can line them up again pretty soon. Getting debuffed, and I have to start taking damage per turn now. Things are getting scary. Bury is also more efficient damage per energy than Eradicate. That's why I use it there. Although that's not really the reason it got added to the deck. And we're down to 2 HP. So this is why my caution was well advised. This time I do actually, despite almost skipping, notice the Transfigure and notice that it's good. And then we get Try Boomerang. This is doubling our output. This is where things get really, really goofy. At this point, I don't realize it, but I don't need to be scared anymore, because even without lining up Borrowed Time, I'm one-shotting most enemies with Eradicate or Bury. This act is going to be quite a bit faster than the last one for that reason. Act 2 is really slow, the pace is no longer that incredible, but it is still world record pace for Ascension 10 Necrobinder. We don't take the Debilitate because we don't need more top end. My top end is already enough to basically one-shot any boss if I can line everything up correctly. So adding cards that prevent me from lining it up correctly is actually just making me worse. Here we get the Giga combo, Eradicate gets Transfigured, and then Borrowed Time, and this guy is just dead. Here we added Lethality, which in hindsight I would not do again. In my head this is less conditional than Debilitate, which requires Vulnerable to function. I can just play it and forget about it. You'll see that I do forget about it later. I end up using High 5 to apply Vulnerable, when I could just be using the Lethality bonus, which is 50 or 75%, which is just as good or better than Vulnerable. It's also the same problem as I explained before. We don't need more top end, and this is just adding another card to my deck that I have to draw before I get to what I really need to end the fight. The Mummified Hand does make it a little bit less bad, though. And we're going into the Mechanite here. This is a great example of where I had the power to just clear this guy. If I can just get my Transfigure Eradicate, then this guy is instantly dead. But instead I try to fumble around with some transfiguring the High 5, worrying about all of this kind of stuff, when really I just need to be ending turn, getting to my good cards, and then I can nearly one-shot him. So this is not great. I could also be using my Draw Potion, although I think it was probably correct to save that for the bosses. I explained this in my Ironclad run as well, but the Act 3 bosses are the major hurdle of Ascension 10 runs. It's very easy for those to kill you. And we're up against the Test Subject, which is particularly terrifying, with 3 phases and Intangible turn. That means that the fight has to last at least 4 turns, and it is very difficult to block all of that, and also be able to one-shot all of that. So I play out an abundance of caution here. I'm resting. I get that payoff for the Potion of Insanity that I bought at the shop. We do 200 damage on turn 1 to Queen with that. and then we line up the gig combo and she's down for the count. The fight after this, the experiment, is going to take about 45 seconds, which is a little bit of a slog, so I guess I'll use that time to express my overwhelming gratitude for the reception of the last video. That was so far beyond anything I was hoping for, and I am just really grateful to everyone who saw that video, who's watching this video right now, who engaged with the video, but especially those who came out to the couple of streams that I've had since then. I did some rotating Ascension 10, and we're also going for the Ascension 10 Regent speedrun world record. I've had a lot of fun with those. If you'd like to catch them live, my twink is linked in the description, and it would mean the world to me if you could give me a follow. But other than that, we're getting to the end of this test subject fight. And good game. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Peace.